family of God. So with that, I'd like to pray and go from there. God, you are our help in ages past and our hope for years to come. Thank you for helping us in 2022 to work together, to round out our staff, to serve you in ways visible and hidden, and to make plans for the future. You know better than we do how we need your help, and we're glad that we can serve you in yoke with Jesus. Please guide this meeting by your Spirit as we consider budget and building and other matters. May our decisions and interactions please you. Through Jesus, amen.
We can get the slides started. Thank you. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. We hope we can be crisp and clear as we work through this agenda. A couple of votes are going to be required. We'll do our best to explain and answer questions as we go through this process. So the agenda for today. So we had the opening prayer. We'll have brief covering the minutes from the last congregational meeting. We'll review the year-end financials 2022, go over the proposed budget for 2023. The vote on the budget is usually a voice vote. We're going with ballots this time. We wanted folks who were doing programming downstairs who wanted to vote have a chance to vote an absentee ballot, and so we're going to go with ballots here as well. And it'll be an up and down vote on the budget. The facility design update won't be there. We're going to flip-flop nominations motion with the facility design update. Tom will give that. A brief update on the HRS response, and if there's any old business or new business that comes up. So without further ado, John.
Thank you. I'm John Maxwell. I'm the treasurer. I'm kind of sad that Brent left because I wanted to see him dance. You know, I think that would be a good icebreaker to before you start talking about a budget. I'm excited to show you the receipts and highlights from 2022 and the upcoming 2023 budget. I'm going to dive in quickly to 2022 and then cover 2023. I'd like to leave as much time as possible for questions, so forgive me if it moves kind of fast. And Brent did mention this, but I would like to thank Matt Rotman. He moved to Kentucky, but he was the one who started this budget, and I kind of just stepped in and filled in. So first off, for 2022, we had a total receipts of $845,463 with disbursements of $783 with a net cash flow of $42,000. 2022 receipts were 86% of the 2022 budget goal. For expenditures, we were just over 79% of the goal. So that's mainly the reason that there was a net cash flow, is that the expenditures came in lower than the receipts. For the year-end GF summary, we ended just about $10,000 less than the 2022 beginning balance, and you can see that there was a $51,000, just over $51,000 deposit to the budget reserve, with the $42,000 cash flow from the 2022 income and disbursements. And there is the total giving and special offerings for 2022.
What's not included in here are any pledges associated with the facility design, which were significant in the year. Those will be booked probably in 2024, or 2023, I'm sorry.
So as we move on with the 2023 budget, for the budget that's going to be before you today, there is some relatively minor changes than what was mailed out in the congregational email. It's a $5,500 decline from what was emailed out originally, and the details of that are as to follow. $3,000 less in the leadership training and enrichment line, and just under 4,400 less in denominational shares and classes shares. The major changes between 2022 and 2023 were detailed in the congregational letter of the major changes. Summarized in the major increases are in the major item fund, which is a $20,000 increase, recognizing future infrastructure charges and projects that will be outside the scope of the facility design, including the roof and the HVAC systems. There's additional $11,000 that is represented in the 2023 budget as well for a potential debt service on the facility design. I'd ask staff members and families to leave at this time. Sure. The first is a $3,000 reduction in the leadership and training item from $3,700 to $700. And then between the denominational shares, the CRCNA, and the classes Lake Erie, there is a $4,390 charges between the those two line items. There is also a slight change in the budget before you relative to what was mailed out, and that is a $1,857 increase in the Carla's compensation to make sure that all staff members receive the same percentage increase. Overall, the savings that have been recognized over the past few years have been in overhead and the benefits that have declined. So you see there from 2022 to 2023, there's about a $60,000 decline in the benefit structure for insurance and other overhead.
So the salaries piece, we have Jill for the entire year. We have Gary for the entire year. Jill has an opportunity to hire a part-time person, and that's in there as well. Go back one on the slide. And then as he mentioned the benefits, this is a line that we'll continue to see goodness from based on the new staff structure. So we have much less demand on benefits based on the folks we brought in and the positions, some of those key positions being part-time positions.
As Dave mentioned, here's the 2023 budget for those major salaries. And the second one is a representative of Carla's combined children's ministry and small group coordinator.
So in the 2022 budget, those were grouped together. She was doing that work, but it's different work, and so we split it out in this budget for children's ministries and small groups to be one, to be separate line items.
There's actually a typo too. That third line should be Director of Pastoral Care, which would be Gary's position. Yes?
Is the small groups for adults or children? It's hard to talk on that title.
It's for everyone. It's mainly for adults, though. And then here's the other salary pieces in the budget. There's no change from these from what was mailed out. take any questions with salary and benefits at this time. So if we could get the staff and families to be invited back in.
Congratulations, you moved to that really quickly. I just hope there's not calls tonight, hey, about that slide.
And here is the final summary of the 2023 budget broken out into the 4 major categories. There is an update on the bottom there where it says a 1.6% decrease. It's a 2.1% decrease now, so it's a slight increase in the decrease if you follow what I'm saying. So I'd like to take any questions for you at this time.
All right, some context around the budget. If you've noticed, we had about $825,000 in income this year, and we have a budget for $943,000 for the coming year, for 2023. And that could be perceived as foolhardy. Why would we think in 2023 we're going to cover a budget that's $100,000 bigger than we were able to generate funds for this year? First of all, it's not foolhardy. It's ambitious, but it's not foolhardy. We're starting the year with a $282,000 balance in the general fund. And we're going to take this year to figure out what's happening with giving. We have some good ideas that 2022 may be an anomaly. Anyone who attended previous congregational meetings or read the emails knew that we were in great shape as far as cash flowing, but we weren't going to make budget. So those of you who were very willing to help us in the time of need didn't feel there was a need this year. We think that's part of it. We also have a capital campaign going on for the building design project. So again, those who have means are maybe thinking, well, I'm going to get hit for that, so maybe I take care of that this year rather than, help at the end of the year with the general budget. We've also lost some folks in the congregation. Thank goodness we're adding. Today was really exciting with this group up front. But some of those folks were substantial contributors, so we got to understand, what's going on there. We also think maybe there's some fatigue, with it's been a long 3-year stretch with COVID, and then we'll throw the HSR on top of that. And then we're going to throw another capital campaign to freshen up the church. That maybe there was a little lack of interest, or it's like, man, I'm going to take a breath and I'll take a look at it later. I don't know if this is true, but I think it's been true in other congregations, and from the HSR, this may be a way of protesting if they disagreed with the HSR. That lack of interest to support things going on in the denomination. I hope it's not, but it could be a kind of a vote of no confidence in how we're doing things. We don't think that's it, but we have to be aware that that could be out there as well. So I think 2023 is a really important year for the congregation in terms of giving. Are we a church that can support a $950,000 budget or not? And if we're not, then the second half of this year we're going to have to do some thinking about what that means as to the amount of programming that we can deliver for the receipts that we get. We also think that We should not be writing budgets that are regularly depending on cash reserves to make the budgets. We need to write budgets that the congregation has an appetite and an opportunity to meet. Cash reserves are great, and the cash reserves we have been built up over a decade. And they're there to help if we've got an emergency situation. They're also there if we've got a big program or a big project like we're doing with the refurb here, or it could be a ministry thing. That's what that money's for. So we want to be very conservative in our approach to the budget and write budgets that we think can be maintained with cash flow from donations that year. And if we can't do that, then we're going to have to revisit that in 2024. Can I get a motion to approve the budget as presented? Dave, can I get a second? Jerry? Questions or comments on the 2023 budget? There being none, please fill out the ballot. And Eric and Rob will be collecting them. Jerry Odie. We got a few over here. So after you've filled it out, if you could just pass it to the outside aisle. Pass it to the outside aisle, and we'll pick them up. We'll give you a time for this to take place. While we're doing that, I can jump back to what I missed, which was a quick update on the previous congregational meeting. There were 4 motions there. The first motion was to approve what the design committee proposed. That was approved by a vote of 67 yeas and 22 nays. The second motion was to move up to $398,400 in the budget reserve fund to help finance that project. That passed by a count of 66 to 23. The third motion was to allow the council to borrow up to $300,000 if needed over the course of this project to complete it. That passed by a count of 64, 60 approved and 28 nays. The fourth motion was approval of a year-end bonus for the staff, and that was approved by a voice vote. So I apologize for the way this is happening. We generally like to get information out about motions prior to the congregational meeting, so you're not surprised by anything. We thought we were there. Council approved this to move to the congregation in December, but during the month there were a number of questions about clarity, so we decided let's revisit it in January, which we did, and it really didn't give us time to get it out in front of the congregation. Where this is coming from is from the nominations committee, which was Tiffany Kennan, Rich Jess, Brooke Lemon, and Dave Vanderhagen. And they came to council and said, we're seeing kind of a pattern, and the pattern is that we've got qualified, willing, and available folks who aren't so interested in taking this on anymore. And the reason they're not that interested in taking this on anymore is they've been up a couple of times and they didn't get the votes to get in. And we thought that that was a problem. You know, any slate that we bring in front of the congregation has been vetted by the council, and our determination, any of those folks, you know, are qualified, and praise God, they're willing and available to do it. So the suggestion was, let's move to a lot for the final selection. So we'll walk through this. Really, the front end of it is exactly the same. Names are submitted through the congregation, or the council comes up with names. They're vetted by council, and it says here on the bottom of 2, if you know, we want to present double the number of candidates that we have slots to fill. So if we have 2 deacons, we want 4 qualified, available, and willing folks to choose from, and the same with the elders. But occasionally that doesn't happen for whatever reason. We don't get enough ballots, or at the end somebody's moving that was going to go, and there may be other reasons. But that's no change. Council's had that with church order, can do that with reasons, with supportable reasons to the congregation. We don't go there very often, but occasionally we do, and I think quite recently we did, just because we didn't get enough yeses to join the council. So the front end is the same. What's a little bit different is council then would look at kind of skill set. So if we needed, if we were short on financial acumen, we'd be looking for some folks who could bring that. If we were a little short on like organizational leadership experience, we might be focusing on that. If we're looking for, or it might be HR or something like that. So those go into the vetting process that council does. The outcome of this would be there'd be pairs of nominees. So there'd be 4 pairs of nominees, and we draw a lot on each pair. And that's the ability for council to say, we'll put these 2 together because they're fairly similar skill sets. We'll put these 2 together because they're fairly similar skill sets. And if we get 1 from each of that group, we're in great shape. That's the concept. So, what I'm going to do, since we didn't give you a forewarning of this, I'm going to ask for a motion, and if we get a second, we'll have conversation about it. But before we go to the vote, I'm going to have a vote on whether you're ready to vote. Listen, if you're ready to vote. And if you're not, that's fine. We'll circle back on this in a week or 2, somehow, some way, you know, to get this vote completed. If you are, which is great, then we'll move to the vote. So, and that's going the extra mile, but it's really important for us. Well, we want to be transparent with these motions ahead of the congregational meeting, and we weren't able to do that this time. So council, since they've already approved this, submits a motion that we move to this process as presented for our nominations, not a nominations process. Do we have a second for that? Okay, second. Now, questions, comments about the process? Hopefully I did a good enough job explaining it.
How does a lot get drawn?
We haven't figured that out. It'll probably happen during the congregational meeting. There's no reason that we couldn't do it before, but I think there's good having the folks see what that process is. So if you vote it down, then we're not going to worry about it. If it's voted in, then we'll figure it out, okay?
Eunice can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not that much different than what we've been doing, because very often congregations do not, a candidate will not get enough votes to be elected.
Yeah.
So their names are put in a hat and they are selected. And no one knows who's elected and who's selected.
So the difference with this is it's very upfront. It shouldn't be, but it is, because we're people. There's winners and losers on the vote. And if you're a loser a couple times, you take that personally or can take that personally, or say, well, they don't want me, so I don't want to participate anymore. And they're good people, very qualified people, and who knows why they got the vote or didn't get the vote. So that's probably the difference. It's upfront, but it's not that much of a departure from our current. You're correct.
Thank you. I have one thought, and I wonder from maybe a friendly addition to it, and that is, how do you decide these pairs for number 4? What if the council decides that I've got a skill in some area, but I don't think I do? That I wonder if at this point you should ask the person who's the pairs, whether or not they feel they would be willing to run in that niche.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, like I said, the process up to that point is exactly the same. We'll have hopefully 4 folks who say, yes, I'll put my name up for deacon. We have 4 folks who say, yes, I'll put my name up for elder. And then from there, we want to make the pairings as fair as possible based on skill set. And we'll use whatever input we have. And it's not scientific. You could have 4 people who are clones of each other from a skill set. Then that's what you got. That's what you got. But where it makes a difference, where, hey, that would really help if we had that right now, then we'd do that. So yes, I think input from the candidate would be something that we'd look at.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my experience has been that that's all part of the process and the conversation when somebody's reaching out to you to be on council. They talk about your skill set and what the council needs.
In the past, part of that assuring diversity has been gender related. Is that still a large factor in this process?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's important for the composition of the council. Not at all costs, but certainly it's a high priority. All right. So, voice vote. Those in favor of voting on this today, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. It passes. Those in favor of the motion as submitted, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Go ahead. Okay. Oh, I'm going backwards? You're at it. Go ahead, Tom. We'll find your stuff.
Thank you.
Push either button, it works the same.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to give you an update from the facility design group who's been thinking about our facility. I turned in a very black and white thing thinking, there's probably a theme that the congregation is using. No, you have my very black and white PowerPoint skills. I'm actually a little bit stronger than that. This is a reminder of the phases of the process. The council decided we should look at our facility in 2019. In 2021, after the first phases of the pandemic and all of the uncertainty, we decided to have a programming and master planning process, which occurred in the spring and all the way through the fall of 2021. A preliminary design occurred at that point, and then spring of last year in May, you approved spending some additional money to create what is called the schematic design, which has more detail and gets you to a closer number. In November, the congregation approved spending $1,430,000, which was the best estimate we had at that time from the schematic design. What has been happening since that time is the next process called design development. More layers of detail, more things like, okay, exactly how would we stretch fabric and do things to have projecting onto the screens. A lot of engineering professionals are involved, the architects and so on, and a small group of us going, yep, that sounds about right, to help them move along. There is then, and that sort of deadline was hit this week of, okay, now construction manager, you've got our next layer of what we think makes sense. Go back again and find out what you think is happening to the numbers to get these things done. So that's where we're in this process, and in the next 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, we should be able to say, yep, let's have construction drawings, let's start doing what it takes to lock in our contract with the construction manager and with the architect and begin bidding, which probably wouldn't occur until April. So this is a little bit off from what I told you the last time we met, that we were kind of hoping we'd be having bids a little earlier than that, but this is the hope. And then if any parts of it can happen in the summer and the fall, that's our hope. We hear a little bit that there's some softening in the trades, but so that we hope that this will be a good schedule that we can continue to follow. Just a quick reminder of the 5 parts of what is involved in this. The big number is, and you will have a chance to take away a sheet today that will have these details back and front and back, and tell you a little bit about how to give, which is what we'll talk about. But the sanctuary is the big one, where we are getting to a spot where we can have the cross again, so that we've come up now with the fabric that would go in front of the organ pipes on either side that would allow the glorious organ music to come forward while also allowing us to have a reasonable projection on the screens. We would have 2 projectors instead then, be on either side. We are working on the redesign of the nook a little bit. There's some details to happen yet. The brown paneling would be replaced with an acoustic paneling that's designed to keep the great live acoustic characters of our building or of this room, which people love, who are choirs and so on. And then we are making some modifications to the stage. I wondered at first whether it made sense to extend the stage. Today I was like, wow, yeah, we could use a little more room up here actually, and it's not a lot. It's just creating a curve and being able to bury some of the wires and boxes that you see. But some of those details are still kind of being worked out, but we are getting there. We also, in this plan, would have flexible seating instead of pews. So it would be individual chairs, and we're having 2 companies mock up things that we hope would be useful for the flexibility of being able to change if we need to change the space a little bit. We would be able to put them on a curve a little bit. Can't go too far, otherwise in a slanted floor you'd feel strange, but you could create a little more continuity, and we don't want to lose our acoustic qualities by getting too much cushiness in everything, but they should be really nice. And they're cost effective. The other major thing we're doing in the interior is 2 of the offices would be lost, as well as the sort of seating at the front. I should not use the word loss. We are gaining a cafe and a bunch of seating. I'm getting very excited about this as we have been using that space more and more. I see the kids, I see all the intergenerational things happening. And then the front half of the library would be opened up, and that's where the coffee service could happen with a little bit of, we'd have water and sinks and things that would make that very usable. A little bit of changes to the entry with a half wall and glass to just create an open space. The three exterior things that would be occurring is we would be upgrading the facade a bit, creating a canopy that would allow for a drop-off, having a very obvious way of dropping people off, some staining of the bricks to update the look, a little bit of cladding and so on that would create a little different look at the front, and a lighted sign to make sure that people understand that's where you come in. And then the pavement needed something soon, but we'll be creating that turnaround, repaving, and actually changing the direction of the flow around the church, which will allow us to put more of our handicap parking up at the building, which we think will be really good. During the audit process of getting to know the building, it became apparent that we have to get to the roof over there on the east side, and there is some masonry repair around the gym that if we don't work on it now, it will just get more expensive and worse. So there are all of the things together, which I'm not sure that shows up very well, but again, you'll be able to walk away with this. $1,464,000 is our best thought at this point. The cash that we believe will be available from the congregation is $513,000. You heard Dave talk about the decades of accumulation we've had in both special funds and in additional giving past our budgeted amount. We've had a silent campaign where we have secured $500,000 already. You voted on a mortgage up to $300,000, but we have set our additional fundraising goal to be $300,000, which would mean that a mortgage would only need to be $151,000. Maybe we'd need even less than that. So fundraising is the next big thing that we want to get to, and we will have this information for you to be able to look at. A QR code for you to go directly to the online giving. One-time gifts would be obviously something we would appreciate. If you'd like to contribute over time, we'd say please no more than 2 years, so monthly contributions of either 12 or 24 months. Or if there's something different that you want to do in pledging or something that's a little more complicated, securities or whatever, then call the office and we would work directly with you on that. So that is the update on that.
Thank you. We thought you brought enough color to the presentation that we could just do black and white on the slides.
By the way, in the attempt to try to not go over budget, I found out that this is really expensive over at Staples to print. These are $1.67 a piece, so I printed 50 of them for you to see, but there's got to be a cheaper way of doing that in the future, but we were a little last minute, so we do have something for you to take, but please don't make a napkin out of it or something.
All right. A brief HSR update. In previous communications, we said that council would be prepared for a public statement on our position, and we're ready for that. So mid next week, you'll get an email explaining what we're doing and what we're thinking. We did a lot of listening over the last 18 months, a lot of evaluative feedback, trying to understand the implications. For council, it was difficult because you've got 12 or folks with their personal opinions, and to somehow mold that into something that we as a council, as a position, can agree on and move forward with. And it was a good process, but it wasn't a quick process. But we think that we're there. So what you're going to see is one voice. It's one voice from council, and we'll stand by that. What you're also going to see is some thoughts about posture, which I think is really important. You know, what should our posture be, or what can our posture be to each other within this congregation and within the community, knowing that the likelihood of us aligning on either side of this issue 100% that's not going to happen. So no matter what we do, we're going to have folks in this congregation who feel strongly that it was the right thing to do, and we'll have folks who feel strongly that it was the wrong thing to do. So what should our posture be that, you know, as a Christian community? The goal is unity. You know, this whole thing is to be transparent and to give opinions and to give what we're thinking with the hope that that brings unity. But there's risk that it polarizes. If we do nothing, there's a risk of polarizing. If we do something, there's a risk of polarizing. And that tipping point really falls on us as a congregation. It really falls on us as a congregation. So I really just ask, when you're reading this stuff and you're thinking about this stuff, think of where the heart of it and where the intentions of it are coming from. So read it, socialize it all you want, respond. In February, we'll have opportunity for discussion, dialogue, Q&A, whatever the congregation needs to understand and to give voice to what they're thinking. So that's on the board, yet to be determined for the first part of February. Questions or comments about that? We just thought it was not wise to drop that on an already full congregational meeting schedule, and that delivering it next week, email is the best way to go, and then we'll respond accordingly from there. Any old business? Yes.
I have two questions. One is about the well, the 11 o'clock service. I think it's been going on for almost a year now, and I wanted to know what the council's sense is for how effective it has been to reaching out to the campus community and the unchurched community, which was the goal. So I'd like to hear your response to that. My second question is if the council would be willing to commit themselves to doing a summary report after each council meeting and make that available through a link on the e-newsletter so that we know what's going on.
On the second one, I don't know the full implications of that, but it seems to make sense. And so we'll follow up on that. On the first, I will just say two things. One is it's going slower than we'd like with the well, and there's a sweet spot of the number of folks that you can get on a regular basis that then you can launch and grow from. So they're working towards that, but it's still alive, and we're still going to be moving forward with it. However, it will not be year-round. So when school's out of session, it's probably going to hiatus until school starts up. So during the summer, there'll be one service. That's what's on the table right now. So I have no more information, new information for you other than that, other than we're looking at it on a regular basis.
Could you report on how many people from the campus community come and how many unchurched people have come, so we know what's going on right now?
I'm not in a position to do that now, but if that's something the congregation would like to see, I think that's something we can provide.
Yes, I'd be interested. Thank
Okay,
you.
yep. Any other old business? Jerry?
Is there any dialogue about bringing back the adult forum, the adult Sunday school class in the gym?
Yeah, there is. I think Jill's getting her sea legs under her. And the adult side of things, we had a conversation on that in council this past week about how to get moving on that. So a lot of that is trying to find where the interest is and then the appetite for that. So she's at work at trying to figure that out. So I don't have anything concrete other than that is come up many times as sort of a fundamental thing that folks like to have here. Any other new business? Tom forgot something.
Write things down, Tom. God. Well, Carla stopped me to say, hey, we can get this color thing on the website, right? And yes, I'll get that over to Shalom tomorrow, the PDF. But one of the things that the council committed to, and I failed to let you know, is the council has said, we all support and we will all give to this campaign. And that's a really wonderful thing to feel the leadership who's had more chance to hear more often about it say that they're there, not just in the congregational vote that we took in November, but in their support. And so I wanted to let you know that because I think it's great. And we will have meetings, so we'll invite you to things that are quite specific too, so that we can walk around and you can ask more questions if you'd like for some of this fundraising. But I really wanted to let you know that that was a great encouragement to me when I met with the council on Thursday.
All right, let's close. Father, we thank you that you are all-knowing, because we know we're not. We thank you that you know the end game, and so do we, based on your revelation to us. You ask us, you're not interested in strong armies or brilliant politicians. What you want is our hearts, and you want us to love you and to love each other. So we just pray that everything we do, particularly with River Terrace, starts and ends there. We pray this in your name alone. Amen. Thank you.